Okay, we're going to continue in our learning of Hilchot Tefillah, and we're going to start in Hilchot of praying out loud. Okay, so you can see the Gemara Masechet Berachot learns a lot of lessons of Tefillah from Hannah, from the mother of Shmuel. It's very interesting that we learn a lot of lessons from a woman of how to daven. Coming on.
Also from a woman.
It's also true. Okay, Ariel, we're just starting. We're on page 151 in Tzurba Rabbanan, and we are holding in praying Hilchot of Tefillah. So the first source in 16, source 16, page 151, Yachol Yashmiya Kolo Tfilato. One might think that when I daven, I have to daven loud. Everybody should hear. Maybe I should make sure that God can hear me. Kvar Mifurash Aideh Hana. We already learned from Hana. Shenemar, it says over there, and Hannah was speaking in her heart, her lip moved, and it says v'kola lo yishma, and they didn't hear her voice. V'kola yishma mikan. From here we learn she'asur lehagbia kolo b'tfilato. The Gemara learns from there you're not allowed to raise your voice in davening. And here, when we talk about davening, we talk about Shmona Esrei. Okay, so I'm talking you're not allowed to raise your voice in Shmona Esrei. The Gemara Masechet Berachot, a couple of dafim earlier said, "Hamashmiya kolo b'tfilato." Someone who raises his voice during prayer, he is of short belief. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't think God can hear him. He has to scream. It's like the Nevi HaSheker, right? When Eliyahu Navi was when he had his duel with the Nevi HaSheker was stomping and screaming and yelling, trying to get the guy from underneath to start the fire. Right? That's the Nevi HaSheker. They have to scream out loud. Hashem is right there. We don't have to scream. The Gemara there continues, and the Gemara says, Amar Rav Huna, it's only if someone who can be mechaven when he can have kavanah when he's reading it, whispering quietly. But if he can't have kavanah when he's reading quietly, mutar, then it's mutar to raise your voice. Bahani mili, however, this is when he is alone, but if he's with the tzibur, he cannot tell to the tzibur that he needs kavanah and she scream out loud. He's not allowed to disturb a congregation. Now, the Tosefta, page 152, source 19, the Tosefta, the Braita, says as follows. And the Bet Yosef adds in the Girsa le'oznav. One might think he should be able to say Shemona Esrei, that he should hear it with his ears. Perish mechana. It says by Chana Shnemar, Chana haya midaberet alibah. Chana spoke in her heart. So you see, you don't have to be loud. Okay? So from the Bavli, we see that you shouldn't be loud at all when davening the quiet Shemona Esrei, unless you're home. Unless you're davening even at home, even in the shul, if nobody's there, then you're allowed to raise your voice a little bit. But if you're davening in a tzibur, it seems that you shouldn't raise your voice at all. However, this is in contrast to the Yerushalmi, source 20. It says over there, Tani nitpalel v'lo yishmiel ozno yatzah. Someone davened and he didn't hear it to his ears, yatzah. Lemi nitzacha. Why do we need this halacha? For who? The Rabbi Yossi. Maybe for Rabbi Yossi. Hayadin, Rabbi Yossi, hadat taninin hakoret shema v'lo yishmiel ozno yatzah. Rabbi Yossi Omer lo yatzah. We had a Mishnah earlier that said that if you heard Shema, if you didn't hear it to your ears, according to one opinion, you're Yotzeh, but according to Rabbi Yossi, you're not Yotzeh. So the Pnei Moshe explains this Gemara. Hayadin Rabbi Yossi, Ez Rabbi Yossi v'kamer. Because that said, how did the Tanein v'chulo v'chalayim Rabbi Yossi, the Svarle of Mishnah, who said in our Mishnah, the Kriyat Shema, by Kriyat Shema, Ap b'di avad lo yatzah. He said, even b'di avad, if a person didn't hear by Kriyat Shema, according to Rabbi Yossi, if you didn't hear yourself saying it, you're not Yatsa Kriya Shema. Kamash Milan, the B'tefila Moidehu B'di'avad Yatsa. That in Tefila B'di'avad, you're Yatsa, the locative B'Shema, because it doesn't say the word Shema. So according to the Yerushalmi, you're supposed to hear it to your ears. You're supposed to hear it to your ears. That's what the Rambam brings down Halakha, source 22. And he says, what should be the person's voice? Lo Yagbiyah Kolo B'Tfilato. He shouldn't raise his voice, velo yitpalel b'libo, and he shouldn't pray in his heart. So the Rambam is very clear, you shouldn't pray in your heart. Ela, I think the word is mechatech hadevarim b'sfatav, that he should pronounce it clearly from his lips, umashmiya la'oznav belachash, and he should hear it to his ears in a whisper. So the Rambam paskins lahalacha like the Yerushalmi, that you have to hear your davening to your ears. Shulchan Aruch brings down. So here comes a Yosef Karo in the Shulchan Aruch. Lo yitpalel b'libo levad. Person should not just pray in his heart. And he should hear it from his ears. He should, with his lips, move his lips and hear it with his ears. V'lo yashmiya kolo, and he shouldn't hear. V'lo yashmiya kolo, and they shouldn't hear his voice. And if he can't do it with a whisper, whisper is not a knife, then he's allowed to raise his voice. This is when it's between him and himself. Because then he's bothering the tzibor. So according to the Shulchan Aruch, he passes like the Rambam, that you have to pray davening, you have to be able to hear what you are saying to your ears. No one else should be able to hear you. Now, if he's home and he's raising his voice, the Ramah says, mutar. If he is at home and he wants to raise his voice, he's allowed to read it out loud so they can learn. So at home, you definitely have permission when you're praying at home. For whatever reason, you're allowed to raise your voice out loud. It's better, so this way the kids can learn. Here in the Yalkut Yosef, he brings down the mi shehit palel beherur halev. If someone is just praying with thoughts in his heart, he didn't move his lips and his mouth. He wasn't yotzeh his chovat tefillah. He has to go back and daven again. He says, he should make it tonight and say, if I have to, I don't have to. He makes it tonight like that. But a person has to move his lips. He doesn't move his lips. He's not yet say a day tefillah. The Mishnah Berurah brings down he's supposed to pray loud enough that your friend next to you doesn't hear you.
It comes often is when the person is davening Shmoneh Esrei, you finish davening,
right?
Now you can hear him saying the brachot. Do you answer amen or?
So you're gonna see, you're allowed. You're allowed to answer amen. Then, yeah, we're gonna see that in a minute. I saw it in the Yalkut Yosef. I'll bring it down. Now the Yalkut Yosef brings down here in the Tzurba page 154, source 25. You can open up page 154. Now the person shouldn't hear it. We're going to see that this is actually the Zohar, that the Zohar holds. We're going to see the Zohar is the next piece. The Zohar holds that you shouldn't hear it at all. The halacha is like Maran, Bet Yosef, Maran Yosef Karo, Shulchan Aruch, if a person is hearing what he's saying, he can make sure that he's reading the words correctly. And he's able also to have better kavanah. Truth is, a lot of times I feel, as when I'm a chazan, when I'm praying for the chazara, I feel I have more kavanah in that prayer than in my quiet one, because I'm reading it out loud. It kind of reinforces the words that I'm reading. So he says, the Yalkut Yosef says that's why we would want to do that, so you can hear it better. Here, so this I brought here. I don't know why I put this here, but let's see over here. The Iker Din is if you hear someone davening and you're within the 4 amot of them, you answer Amen. If Shama Abracha Em Tzug Zimra, Oina Amen. As the Ikar Adin is answering Amen. So the person is davening Shmona Esrei, Lahash. He's davening Shmona Esrei Lahash quietly, and you hear him. You have to answer Amen. He's saying brachot. He's saying brachot. Here it's Yaakov Joseph. This is Simon Kuf Aleph, Halach and Gimel. Okay. Now let's take a look at the Zohar. The Zohar, though says that the Zohar is in Aramaic. You have the Targum in Hebrew in the last 3 lines. You can see, and the source 26, the 3 lines in the gray. But we'll read it in English because anyway, we're going to translate it in Hebrew. If prayer is heard by human ears, there's no one who will accept the prayer above, nor will be accepted by anyone after it was first heard. The Zohar says that if you let someone hear your prayers here on earth, then on Shemaim they don't listen to it. That's what the Zohar says. Therefore, one must be careful that his praise not be heard by anyone. Furthermore, even himself, apparently. Furthermore, the words of prayer unite in the upper world, and the words in the upper world need not be heard. And since it's words that have to go to Shemaim, you shouldn't be hearing them. This seems to be from the Zohar. Yeah, you shouldn't hear it. Anyone hears? Is he hearing?
Himself.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
to hear yourself.
Yeah, as the Zohar says no. That's why the Yaakov Yosef says.
Only chotech mispatav. That's it. Only say it with your lips,
With
no
hearing it, according to the Zohar. Now look at the Mamre Mordechai, right? This is Mordechai Elio. What does he write? He says, "Well, dat Maran tzarich lashmiya rak lo oznav shel mitpalel atzmo et tfilat yudchet. V'ledat hazohar ein lashmiya afil lo oznav el yitpalel b'lachash uv'navnuash sefatayim bilvad v'chein nohagim." The Mordechai Elio says that we should be noiheg like the Zohar. You should just move your lips, and you shouldn't hear your prayer. If So Mordechai says, but if you're going to listen to it, you're going to have better kavanah, then you can listen to yourself. Right. Allah L'maisa for us, we follow the Yaakov Joseph almost on everything, 99.9%. So this would be the point that we'll go like the Maran, Shulchan Aruch, and we should hear ourselves, and no one else should hear you. And you should not be quiet about it. Although that is the opinion of the Zohar. So if you do see people doing it, they are more of a Kabbalistic right, and so you have like that. Okay, so halacha l'maisa, we came out. You have to hear yourself quietly. Say from Esrei. If you heard someone else saying it, mikar, then you're allowed to answer amen. Okay, now we're going to deal with. This is something that Beit Yosef brings down over here that happens in some kihilot, even up until today on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is that they read. Everyone reads or the Chazan reads out loud, even the Aravit, Shmona Esrei, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur, he reads out loud the Shmona Esrei, and everyone reads it with him. There are Syrian places that do that. I've seen it in action. And there is a makor for it. So let's see over here. The Beit Yosef brings down Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim, Nohagim ha'olam lahashmiya kolam b'tfilatam. And he says it's a big wonder to me. It's questionable how such a custom can spread. And he says, when I was younger, I saw in the Sefer HaPeliyah that he criticized this. He's a tagar al minhag zeh. Then he writes, Piskat Tosafot Shilhei Rabbi Yehuda, right? Rosh Hashanah. So he's talking about Rosh Hashanah. V'zel Rosh Hashanah. What does he say? Since we're not used to them, mashviim kolam, we raise our voice. And there are long blessings there. And one may confuse others. Therefore, the Sheikh Tibur reads it out loud and everyone reads it with him. So he says, the reason is because there are prayers that people are not used to reciting. Then the Beit Yosef writes, then they give another reason. Because it's Yisrael you make tshuva, you want to have more kavanah, so you go louder. And since the words of tefillah are dear to people, right? Everyone's going to pay attention to what he is saying, and they're not going to get confused. And he says, so I found in the Mordechai, even though in old days of the years one prays silently, like we see by Chana, Shenem Yom Kippur, one can say them out loud in order to teach others. We're not concerned one will get confused since people have machzorim. Okay, so this is what the Bet Yosef brings down, that you that there's places that you find that would read Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Shemona Esrei out loud. They have some actions, some reasons why they would be allowed to, because they're not regular in it, and people do have machzorim and they don't get confused when you read it out loud. So Shulchan Aruch brings the halacha l'mais saying that Yesh Amrish Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Mutar Lashmiya Kolam B'Tfilah Afilu B'Tzibur. Even if you're in a tzibur on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, you're allowed to read out loud the Shemona Esrei. That's what Shulchan Aruch brings like halacha. And the Ramah says, "V'cheinu hagin." This is the way we practice. This is the way we practice. But you shouldn't raise your voice more than necessary. You shouldn't raise your voice more than necessary. However, we know that I think in most of our shuls, we are not reading out loud Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. We read it silently like the rest of the year. Mishnah Berurah says, "I feel with tzibur la'ara kavana, mitrat tzibur loy chashina and kivin shesedur machzorim biyadam." They have it in their hands. Vayim b'magen avram demasik, who concludes and says, "The yoter tov l'talev lachash im yachol lechaven michein katvu harba achronim." And so says many of the achronim. So Mishnah Berurah says, based on Magen Avram, that it's better to keep quiet, even Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, not to read out loud. Here in the Yalkut Joseph, he writes, "Dutchin hagush asiyach tzibur omer mikol ram tfilat arvit shel lelei yom tov v'shel lelei yamim noraim yesh lahem amash yismechu." They have what to rely on. Vein levatel minahegem b'chayzei gad. You don't need to protest on it strongly. Nifnei hamachloket. Mikol malcham mikol hakahal yodeim utpalim b'toch hamachzor umaskilim levatel minhagim mazeh. Let's say yidei chachamim ukumalim tavo alehem beracha. They should have a beracha if they go it this way. So according to him, he says that a person, a kahilo has a minhag to pray out loud on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, to say the Arabit out loud. Again, I tell you, I've seen it. I was in Flatbush, and one of the Syrian Minyanim for once on a Rosh Hashanah night, and I heard them. I was very surprised that they were doing it that way. Also, you see by the Syrians, a lot of them, I don't know, in the newer days, but in the not the yeshivish ones, I'm talking about like the SY groups. Like when it comes to Hatzi Kaddish, everybody said Hatzi Kaddish. Anyone who was to say Kaddish, even Hatzi Kaddish, they said all together. That was their minhag. Yesh minhag hazeh. You have such minhagim. Okay, so just to end off, so you're praying at home. You're praying at home privately. There's no question. If you're praying at home, and you're praying a little bit loud, which is allowed in order to teach them, and even if you're not teaching them, you just want to pray out loud, and they're there hearing them, they have to answer Amen. Everybody has to answer Amen. So if you're praying at home, this was for me during COVID. So I was praying Shemona Esrei at home, and I was praying it was a little bit loud. So then my wife said, "Should I answer Amen or not?" And I said, "Of course you answer Amen. I'm saying a bracha. And why wouldn't you answer Amen? Bracha is a bracha. This is part of it." So now we see it inside.
I thought you said it out loud.
Why I was saying it though?
You said only out loud to yourself.
Because I wasn't bothering anybody. It was more kavanah of them a little bit louder. All right.
You're at home.
That's it. All right. Now we're moving into the next section. This is being interrupting, being mafsik the Shemona Esrei. Mishnah Berachot says, "Afilu hamelech shal b'shlomo lo yashivenu, va'afilu nachash karoch al ekvo lo yafsik." A king is talking to you, this Melech Yisrael. Right? If a Jewish king is talking to you, today it's even if a Geisha king is talking to you, you cannot answer back because the Geisha king even can't kill anybody today. Has to go through a whole Congress and Shmangas, whatever it is. And if he could kill you, then you would be able to answer. But right, if it's a North Korean leader. But he brings down the Al Joseph. If he's a regular today, the kings that you're going to meet, they're not going to kill you. So therefore, you're not allowed to answer back. Even if you have a snake on your heel, you're not allowed to be mafsik Shemona Esrei. The Yerushalmi, though, says as follows. Tani, Haya Ome Umitpalel. Someone was davening, standing and davening, and the asrati o befalti, and the on the road or in a public marketplace. He's allowed to move if a donkey or a wagon is coming his way. So you're davening Shemona Esrei in a public place, and all of a sudden a wagon is coming. Yishami says you're allowed to move from there. But you're not allowed to be mafsik your davening. And so it's mashma. You're gonna see it's gonna be mashma from the sugya that we're gonna learn that there's a difference between walking during Shemona Esrei and talking during Shemona Esrei. Okay, we already learned a few weeks ago that if you're in the middle of davening and you didn't have a siddur when you started, and then you lost your train of thought and you didn't have the words anymore in your mouth, you're allowed to walk to get a siddur and pray, right? Walking is not considered as big as a hefsek as is talking. So the Yerushalmi says here, Zeh ma'avir pnei chamor pnei hakaron, u'bavad shelo yafsik et tfilato, it means should not be mafsik b'dibur. You shouldn't talk.
And these guys come, they're like have a conversation like right.
Yeah, that's a big problem because you're not allowed to really even sit next to you, right, when you're in the middle of Shemona Esrei.
I'm still in the middle of Shemona Esrei, and they're coming, it's slow, but whatever it is, they think the davening is over, and they start to come, they're schmoozing, and their conversation is bothering my kavanah.
Right. Technically, you're allowed to move. Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, 100%.
Less kavanah.
100%. You're allowed to get up and move. Something's bothering you. We're going to see that even the Alti Yosef brings down the case. If you're davening and the telephone's ringing and the guy's not stopping to ring, you're allowed to take the telephone off the hook or shut it down. You're allowed to walk to the telephone, take it off. Someone's ringing the bell and he's not stopping. You're allowed to open the door and tell him shh and go back to Shemona Esrei. So so you're allowed to stop and go pick it up if it's really bothering you. Yeah, we learned that as well. Yes. Okay, now let's take a look at Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, so something's going, basically Yerushalmi, right? Something's going, you're on the road and something's coming your way. You move, but you're not mafsik. If it's something else, something that you're not going to get hurt on, you don't have to move from your place. Only if you're ready after the first Tehillah Ratzon, you're ready what's considered Oker Raglayim to move your feet, then at that point you will be allowed to move. Shulchan Aruch continues, even if a snake, a snake is on your foot and your heel, shouldn't be mafsik. The Ramah adds on, so they should fall off you. But if it's an akrav, if it's a scorpion, which is much dangerous, he should stop. Lefi shehu moed yoter lahazik. That's much more damaging. Enochash nami. Imra shehu koes umuchan lahazik. And so too, if you see a snake that is already ready to attack, then it's also dangerous. You would also allowed to be masik. When it means to be masik, it means to scream for help. Okay, because walking is not considered a hefsek. This is screaming for help. You need help from somebody. Here in the beige box, he brings from the Taz. The Shulchan Aruch and Ramah hold that one may move locations during Shemona Esrei to remove distractions, implying that walking itself is not considered a hefsek. This is from the Taz. The Taz brings down that based on the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, walking is not considered a hefsek during Shemona Esrei. You're not supposed to walk. It's somewhat of a hefsek, but it's not considered a complete hefsek. Therefore, if you're going to go away from distractions, like Rami said, he's davening and people are coming, congregating and starting to talk, what is he going to do? I mean, he can shush them, but they probably won't listen. So he walks to the other side. This is mutar completely. During Shemona Esrei. If it's not something that he needs to walk away from, then he shouldn't walk away from. Then look in the Mishnah Berurah. Kol hasif hazeh shemasker hefsek mari hakol al yedei dibor. Mishnah Berurah says it beferish. It's only dibor. Al yedei halicha mutar shehalicha lo nikra hefsek. Walking is not considered a hefsek. The dafka hacha dehu l'tzarich. Only when it's a tzarech. The haser hanachash, in order to get rid of the nachash, after talinan deman demin hastam lo yeh sakana, even though we said that it's not really dangerous, but for no reason, mikre halicha gam kitzat hefse. The kemoy shepsaka mechaber b'sif bet. So the Mishnah Berurah brings it down very clear. Mishnah Berurah brings it down very clear. Walking is not considered a hefsek. Talking is the hefsek in Shmoneh, right? Walking for no reason is somewhat of a hefsek. See? How bad?
Who should be the judge of it? Not himself?
Itself,
You're
yeah.
asking.
Yeah, but it should be. It's time I need a tissue because I don't feel a little uncomfortable. And if it's leaking and it's coming out, then I would guess it's something that you would need to walk away from.
That's why you got
Yeah.
two sleeves.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now we're dealing with Mishnah Berurah is going to bring here on Yom Kippur when we do the Korim and Mishtachavim, when we go down to the ground, right?
Yeah.
So I was once davening by a shul in Queens, and there was a rabbi from Eretz Yisrael. He was Iraqi, and he was doing the Musaf. And I don't know if many shuls do this. You tell me. I didn't see it in many places. He was a Hazan, so so he made space for him in the teva. But when he went down and when he got up, he had his two somchim next to him, help him go down and up. And this way, he doesn't move from his spot. Okay, so here what he brings down here, he says, if you see a Hazan and Yom Kippur who's moving,
Oh, there's a minyan. Then just not move.
oh, so your feet are staying in one spot. You're going down.
And coming back.
You're going back up. You are right. There are those who argue with that. If you take a look at note 15, he brings down from Rav Soloveitchik, who said, "I don't understand what it's not walking if you're going up and down." So Rav Yoshe was said what you said, that it's still. But we say that it's not. So he brings here that you should put a stender between him and the permanent bima. And during the avodah, when he needs to bow, one moves to the stender side, and there's no need for him to uproot his feet. He doesn't have to move. Because if he's too close to the teva, then he doesn't have to move back to do the bowing. So you make space for it. Then it's permissible for uprooting for someone of a mitzvah, such as our custom that the chazan immediately after repetition of the prayer uproots his feet and sits for tachanun. So now the Mishnah Berurah says, when the shliach tzibor, when he repeats the Shemona Esrei, he never said, he's never Oker Raglayim. He didn't do Oz Shalom and back up. He says he's Oker Raglayim, but Kaddish Titkabah. So how does he go and sit down for Tachanun and all these things? He says, since it's somewhat of a mitzvah, therefore you're allowed to do Helicha, which is only somewhat of a hefsek. That's what the Mishnah Berurah brings down as well. Here he brings from the Isha Yisrael, להמשיך להתפלל באותו מקום, כגון שיתקרב אליו בעל חיים מסוכן כעקרב, כלב שוטה וכדומה, או ששומע יריות, או אזעקה וצריך לראות למקלת, יקצר בתפילה, היה נשאר בתחילה לכל ברכה בסופה, או יעבור למקום אחר וימשך שם להתפלל, ולא יפסיק בדיבור, אלא אם הדברי הכרחי לצורך העניין. So here he brings down that if it's possible to just be mekatzer to tefillah, every bracha beginning and end, then do that. But if not, you can move and continue davening somewhere else. Don't be masik b'dibur unless it warrants it. Imagine you see someone else who's going to be in danger and he doesn't see the danger, then you're allowed to be screaming out to him to tell him to be careful. Here he brings down she'ein chashash pekuach nefesh, when there's no pekuach nefesh, but he's just scared or something, then he shouldn't really move. He may move to a different location, continue to pray, but he can't interrupt with speech. So if it's not pekuach nefesh, so he shouldn't talk. If he can stay in the place, good. But if not, he can move. And if it would only be a rak hefsid of kaspe, of money, then he's not allowed to even walk. So if you're just going to lose some money if you stand in that spot, you're not allowed to move from there for davening. We do. That's why we would let him actually hold his luggage while he's davening. We learned that last time. Remember, we said that if you're not allowed to hold anything in your hand, right, or anything on your briefcase or anything like that. But if you're going to tell him to put it down, he's going to be worried about his money. So he's allowed to wear it and stuff like that. Obviously, we're talking about.
You can't make a choice. Emergencies or whatever.
Right. The Mamre Mordechai, this Mordechai Eliyahu, he's bringing down what we learned already. If a siddur falls and you're in the middle of davening and you see the siddur falling, that you're allowed to walk to pick it up and put it up because it's bothering your kivanah. Now, just hold on with me 1 second. I brought down a whole thing over here in the Yalkut Joseph that I wanted to review with. You're not allowed to be mafsik during the dibur, right? He says, "Because he can't kill somebody. So obviously, if you're talking to the North Korean leader and he could kill you, then obviously you would be allowed to, right? That's a different story. That's partial. When it's pekuach nefesh, you're allowed to be mafsik even b'dibur. Here he writes that if a person is in the middle of davening, right? Even though we're saying that, well, what happens if someone's in the middle of praying, middle of Shemona Esrei, and they're up to Nagdishach, right? What is he supposed to do? He's supposed to remain silent. So then it's al-din shmei koina. That you hear is like you're talking. But I thought I'm not I'll be mafsik b'dibur in shmei koina. Now,
Like an ilu.
right? So it's not really that you're speaking. So therefore, you're allowed to. However, he brings over here very, very important. He writes over here, this is only true if the Hazan, first of all, knows he's going to try to be yotz of people that are up there in the middle. And B, you have to be able to hear him, right? A lot of people, a lot of shliach tzibur, they go up, they don't know these halachot. It's either two things you can do. You can either be very loud so people can hear your voice, or you should let everyone say, and everyone finish, then you start to say it. So this way, anyone who's hearing it from you hears it. Same thing with Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Everyone says it, and then the Hazan repeats it. So the people who need to be yotzed through him can do it through him. He says if that's not the case, if he doesn't do this, then you have no reason to stop and wait for the Nagdishach. If the Chazan is not going to be loud or you're not able to hear him say those words, then you're not stopping for any reason because you're not being yotzeh through Shemei HaKol. You have to actually be Shemei. You have to actually hear him. And it has to dafka be the Shliach Tzibur. It cannot be that you hear the guy next to you. It has to dafka be the Shliach Tzibur. What did I bring down next? Okay, we already talked about this. Going to see a halacha in the middle of davening. You forgot what's the din. I didn't say tal motar, and you don't know. And your siddur is one of the siddurim that doesn't bring the halachas inside. You're allowed to stop your davening. Walk over to a halacha sefer or somewhere you know you can get it from, and you look up the halacha. He says you're allowed to be mekel. Yesh lo amashi ismoch hazeh o mikol makom ein lahatir lahasik b'dibur l'shaol hadin min tamil chacham. You're not allowed to go over to someone middle Shemona Esrei and say, "No, what's the halacha?" Middle Shemona Esrei, you can't talk because it's the hefsek is the dibur, so you don't want to do talking, even though it's related to the mitzvah that you're doing. It's because it's for Shemona Esrei. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck now. I don't know what to pray next. I can't move on, so I have to figure out what to do. So you're allowed to look it up.
In the siddur itself.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Most Sephardic siddurim have the halachos right there.
So that you're looking.
The art school siddurim usually bring the halachot in the back. You'll see the number. It brings down like nun something. It says over there, and if you go to the back, it gives the halachos bekitzer over there. Okay. Let me just see what else I brought down here. I brought down from Yud Aleph. Yud Aleph. Oh, so he brings over here. This is what we talked about. Mishna Nesva Tzarchat Palel Bebeitov. Emtzat Tfilah Shmona Esrei. Ketchil HaTelephone Nitzatel. All of a sudden, the telephone's going. Oh, he kishu badelet. They're ringing the door. Yimatin me'at. Ashit tell yefasek. You should wait a little bit until it stops. Yam Shem Tfilato. Achim Tziltzil Enu Posek. The guy is just calling nonstop. There's such people. They don't stop. Umachmas Kain Enu Misugal Kavem Tfilah. Mutar lelechet. He allowed to go. And the telephone when it's a car. No difference between a telephone or a child. Or the petoach et hadelet. V'lirmoz lavo lahamtin v'lahamshech v'tfiloto. Yeah, because you can't have kavanah. Right. He said the same thing with a tinuk. A tinuk is making all sorts of trouble. You should try to quiet him down quietly without talking to him. And if he's not going through, he says, if he's not if he's not quieting down, then you can walk away from him. To finish what I said. If you could.
Sometimes you daven also. Somebody raised the voice, you also did.
Say again.
Someone's child is running around the shul. You're allowed to get up and stop.
Pick him up.
Yeah.
Pick him up, don't shmona.
Yeah. Yellow cotton of Akish Ma'aviv or Me'odm Godel, Hanimtza Emta Tfilish Manasai, Shir Lo Hechenli Tpalel, Vayel Choizer Vishalom et Todi Bechvonato. Kids come over, show me where to daven, show me where to daven. Rashai Leftoch Lo Asidiv V'Lerot Lo Mal Hitpalel, Kadesh Yachol Hamshich Lecham et Tfilash Manasai. B'Komokom Lechatchil Roy Lerot Lekatam Mal Hitpalel B'Terem Atchil et Tfilash Manasai. You try to show him from beforehand. Okay. So that's what he brought down over here. Fine. Did we finish up over here? No, so we're up to over here now. Source 39, page 160.
When he goes back to shmona, he takes 3 steps back forward again? Or
No, he just goes straight into it. The only issue would be that if he was mafsik so long that, right, and that the whole time, whatever would take him usually Tavish Shmoneh already passed, he would need to start over because he's already not in the same Shmoneh anymore. So that's a side issue. However,
it's up to a person. If he davens shmona 2 minutes and he's mafsik 3 minutes, has to restart.
yeah, yes, but I don't think everybody davens. Even the people daven 2 minutes Shmoneh Esrei, I think at some point they daven a 3, 4, 5 minutes Shmoneh Esrei. So
Minimum
Once
4
a
minutes.
year, Yom Kippur.
No, 4 minutes is minimum. I tried to daven more than less than.
I tell you what, my Rosh Hashiva Belsky said. He said, if you want to know if someone really daven Shmoneh Esrei, I don't know if he said it in these words, but he said it to some who read this. He said, he was talking about the young boy from the 7th, 8th grade who are davening. He says when they daven b'yechidus, 1, 2 minutes they're done. But then give them to be the Sheikh Tzibor, it's like 4 or 5 minutes. So obviously they're not really davening
Saying
that
it
quick.
out loud twice.
But that's the whole thing. You're supposed to say every word. So if you said every word, if you're doing it too quick when you're quiet, then you're not saying a word. You're just right.
4
Right.
minutes minimum. The whole down, 4 minutes. I was like, tried to catch up with it. 4 minutes.
Okay, look what he says over here. All of a sudden, your middle Shmoneh Esrei, and you always start to get questions in halacha because you start to think and you can't continue. Right? If you can just stop it and put it away, good. And he should wait a minute or two and finish his thought. Okay, so Yaakov says that he's in the middle of thinking halacha, all of a sudden he can't just stop it. You give him, you finish it, let him finish it. In order so he should have better kavanah davening afterward. Because you don't want the whole Shmoneh Esrei to pass over the whole time that it would take, because then you would need to start over.
Yosef Karo
Yeah.
and Arizal were all in the same shul. Everybody was there. All
Right.
the great.
They were in-laws of Yosef Karo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what had happened is Yosef Karo was davening, and Shliach Tzibur was waiting. I was still not going and not finished. And the Arizal says, "Go ahead." He says, but he's not finished. He's now doing pilpulim. He says he knew what he was thinking, what was going on in his mind. Arizal. So you see that it was pilpul. You have to finish it up.
Wow. So what he said over here, then
Similar story was like this.
Yeah.
In the shul, okay, one of the rabbis was davening long time, so another rabbi went to one of the mispalim, and it's kosher.
yeah, it's rough. It's related to this. Okay, so can you go come afterwards? Sure. Thank you. Fine. Let's see over here. He brings down from the Mishnah Berurah. Source 40, page 169. Motioning with one hand during Shemona Esrei. Lo yasik. Feel remiza. Page 161, source 40. Lo yasik. Feel remiza be'alma osir. Even beremez. Motioning with your hands would be osir. Im loy litina kaboicha mutar loy leramez loy biyadav kidei shishtok. Velo yetidu mitfilato. If that doesn't help, you can go away from him. All right. Chen adam nechvad she'omer betfila v'ashir tzibur mamtin alav be'emeret kadish u'kedusha v'ein moroitz bekach shemitenu alav b'zeh matido betfila mutar lo l'remez ashir tzibur she'tpalel kedarko. So if you have an adam gadol there that people are waiting for him, he doesn't want them to wait and is staring his davening, he's allowed to tell them to move on with the motion to start. Okay, right. So we came out that walking is not really considered a hefsek, the gamre, considered ksat hefsek. Talking is only permitted to be mafsek during if it's a puach nefesh. Otherwise, if you really need to be moving or doing something either for kavana or for sakana, you should do it without talking, and you're allowed to walk from place to place. What did I put here? Tough paying dal and ches. Then I just do this one. He says over here, "Minig b'chol tfutzas Yisrael shashir tzibur matin lechochem hakal ad sheisayim shmona esrei. Tam chochem shmarach v'kilotov v'tzibur matin loy. Ein rashai l'rmoz l'shir tzibur le'atchil loy marach hazar kedlei l'mnoa tarach tzibur. Elim kein hu marich yoter medai. The only time he can tell him to move on if he's going more than normal, right? V'nitrad alidei shematim lo. Then yachol lechaven heitev v'tfilato. She'az rashai l'rmoz l'shir tzibur she'atchil l'tfilach hazara kiven she'rmizah zu yeh l'tzarach hakavana b'tfilah. Because when he's motioning, it's somewhat of a hefsek. It's not a real hefsek, but somewhat. Therefore, only to help him with kavanah. Forgot to say yal v'yal, now he has to go back to ritzeh, and they're already done. So now at this point, it's going to be extra waiting. Why don't you say the first hiratzon? He's rather to do the 3 steps backwards. And when he gets to that place, he can say Elokai Nitzar. So Talmud Chacham or anyone of the people are waiting for should be somewhat cognizant that people might be waiting for him. He shouldn't be Mitarach Tzibur more than necessary. Because once davening in a place in Queens, they had this thing. They gave 10 minutes for Shemona Esrei. Personally, I felt that was a little too much. Okay, so some people that's why people who went to daven there go to daven there. I didn't daven there very often because I felt the 10 minutes was too much. At some point, Avram, you want to say something?
Yeah, I feel like 10 minutes for Shaharit is doable. And Shaharit has to be expressed.
I hear
Shaharit, I think 10 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever. Take your time.
This mini was a net's minyan. It was I think it was Bay Gabriel's upstairs, if I remember correctly. They gave 10 minutes. Okay. It worked for some people.
I didn't say no.
It works for some people. Some people doesn't work for. So you have to remember, you have po'alim, you have workers. People cannot take 10 minutes. They have to go.
You go 10 minutes. All of a sudden, you find yourself in China, in Taiwan.
I tell you, they say from Chassidic Gur
in the kitchen, in the Melchika kitchen, and the inflation kitchen. Bochi.
Shabbat, yeah, there's more reason to be a little bit slower. Yeah, 100%. But Shabbat is less brachot, so it's not going to be longer anyway, right? But they say from Chassidic Gur, they say that the minhag with them is to daven quickly because they say if you have daven long, it's going to come with wrong machshavas are going to fly into your mind. So you want to daven fast. There are different approaches to it. Okay, fine. Now in the Penina Halacha, this is Rabbi Elazar Melamed, page 162. He brings down about what about nashim? What about ladies? Pretty much says it's the same din for ladies as it is for men. Same idea that there shouldn't be mafsik b'dibor. They can mafsik with halicha if they need to. If they need to do it, they can motion for the child or something like that. Pretty much the same halacha as it is for men. There's no real difference in that. Talking about women davening any Shemona Esrei.
No problem. Wake up before the kids.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Halavai. This used to be. The mothers will wake up before the kids go to the bus. Nowadays, the kids get up themselves. So there's no parental supervision for the bus. Okay, fine. All right. Now we're gonna come I don't think we're going to end up finishing where I wanted to end up. Maybe. Let's go through a little bit more over here. We have now two more dinim that we're going to try to deal with. Page 163. The din sitting in front of someone who's davening Shemona Esrei and passing in front of someone who's davening Shemona Esrei. Okay, let's take a look. It says over here that when Hannah came to the Beit HaMikdash, or actually wasn't the Beit HaMikdash, right? She came to the Mishkan over there with her son Shmuel. He said as follows: Ani ha'isha hanitzevet imecha bazeh. I was a woman who stood here with you, right? Amr Shua ben Levi, Mikan, from here we see, because she said, I stood here with you, that they were both standing, from what I understand, Mikan, she'asur lishev b'toich arba amot shel tefillah. You're not allowed to sit if someone is davening Shemona Esrei. You're not allowed to sit in 4 amot if someone davening Shemona Esrei. That's what the Gemara says. Rashi says, and in Tzevet Mashma Afhu Amid Be'amida, he also was standing and davening. That's why he was standing there. But you can't sit. Tosafot goes, where do I know Arba Amot from? It says Imacha with the hey. Masha mitoch Arba Imot. Mishum dechsev Imacha Mala behei. Kalam Mishloya Yoshe bitoch Arba Imot. Shala ki im behamishit. You're only allowed to sit if you are 5 amot away. Okay. Okay. Now he brings down over here. The Tosafot brings down, which is on page 164, source 45. Upirish Shuvat Hagoanim Dafka Beyoshev Uvatel. It's only talking about if someone is sitting and he's not doing anything. He's not davening. He's not doing anything. He's just sitting there and battling. Therefore, and then he's not allowed to sit. Aval Imayo Isaac Bekriyat Shema Uvirchotea V'Chayotzehem Afilu Yoshev Shapir Dami. Even if he's sitting, then it's allowed. So when you're not allowed to be sitting in front of someone who's davening Shemona Esrei, it's if you are not davening. That's what Tosafot brings down from the Geonim. Now the Tur and the Beit Yosef argue about this. I'm going to tell you what the Tur and Beit Yosef say outside. So source 46 and 47. The Tur says, Dafka davening, not learning Torah. According to the Tur, if you're learning Torah and someone is davening, you need to not be able to sit there. Because davening, that's going to be dealt in a minute. Yeah. Because that is all Malchut Shemaim when you're taking the tefillah, and learning, he says, is not considered that, and therefore you can't sit there. However, the Beit Yosef says no. When the Gaonim said Kriyat Shema, they didn't just mean davening; they meant anything that's Isaac Malchut Shemaim. He says better. He says a person who's learning doesn't have to daven. That's what it used to be, right? If you're learning, you didn't have to stop to daven. So the Beit Yosef says that it doesn't mean just someone who is in prayer. Even someone who's learning would be allowed to continue to sit there. So now here's the Shulchan Aruch in source 48. Shulchan Aruch says, Asur leisha b'toich dalad amasham mitpalel bein milafonov bein min tzaddim. Okay, in front and on the sides. The Ramah adds bein milacharab, even behind. Okay, so according to Ashkenazim, even behind you're not allowed to be. Tzarich laharchik dalad amot. Ve'im oseg b'dvarim shehem mitkunei tefilot. Which is the beginning of the davening, right? Shulchan Aruch brings down there are those who are matir if they're learning Torah. That's only if it's on the side. Even if he's osek b'kriyat shema. That if it's in front of him directly, he should not, even if it's more than Dalamot, that would be not permissible. And here, this is from the Zohar. What does he bring over here? Where did I write it? Tough Lam and Dalit Alice. Yisur. The Isser. Okay, now here's the halacha l'din for Sfaradim from the Yalkut Yosef. The Isser leisha lefnei mitpalel hu ben milafanav u ben mitzadav, in front or the sides, behind utoch 1.92 meter mehamit palel. So we're talking about 1.92 meters, which is be'erach how much?
2 meters.
It's about 2 meters, which no, he says over here it's about 6.5 feet. 6.5 feet. That's pretty long, right? So if you remember in the COVID time, you're supposed to be 6 feet away from everybody. So this should be it, right? 6 feet away, you're actually away from somebody. Okay? La lacha. You go 6 feet to the side, 6 feet in the front. V'yesh machmirim sheloi leisha l'fnei mitpal afilu kimalo einav. Ach meikar adin ein isur leisha l'fnei mitpal elu toch dal amlu fanav min tzaddim. Okay, and this one that says that it's what's it called? You shouldn't be in front of him at all. I believe that is from the Zohar. You're gonna see that later on. Okay, so far we have from the Shulchan Aruch that in front and on the side, according to the Ashkenazim, even in back, 6 meters, 6 feet, 6.5 feet, you would not be allowed to sit there if you're not davening or learning Torah. Okay, that's what we came out so far.
You gotta sit with after you done Shemona Esrei and learn.
Yeah, seems to be, right? Seems to be. And always, it would be always more makel if you're on the side rather than if in front. In front is always more problematic. Okay? And in front means, when it means in front, Eli Rabbi explains in front means in front of his body. So however wide he is, 6 feet in front of his body. That would be in front. Okay?
Before if you're sitting there, you're up.
We're gonna see in a minute. Here is the picture. Okay, so this is what it means in front. Right over here. So here's the man standing. So 6 feet in front. That's in front. The tzadadav would be this. Okay, that would be 6 feet like that. I'm not asking you to go bring a ruler and figure out every time, but they have an idea that you're supposed to stay away. Okay. Oh, so here he brings Katav Chai Adam and Mitpalo is from Mishnah Berurah, source 49. And Mitpalo Oymed Betzad Echad Medavar Shehu Kavoa Gavoa Yud Rochav Dalit. So something is right, the height of 10 tvachim and wide 4 tvachim, so it's somewhat of like a mechitza, right? Mutter Leshev Betzad Hasheni, the Hamafsik Rishut, because this makes a separation in the places that you are, right? So 10 tvachim high. Is this table 10 tvachim high? This table 10 tvachim high? So technically, and this is definitely 4 tvachim wide, right? So this you would be able to sit on one side and the other side. That's the halacha. However, don't mix this up with passing. If it's not tall enough that you don't see, right? Meaning, if I have that mechitza, someone standing behind the mechitza, technically if I walk in front of that mechitza, he doesn't see me walking. Issue with sound is also another issue, because he might hear you. That also might be problematic. But since he can't see you, it's less problematic. But if the mechitza is 10 tvachim only high, which you can still see the guy, that would be problematic. Now, here is what we were saying before, if he was already sitting. Im hayoshev yoshev klach. The guy who was sitting was already sitting. This guy comes in, stands next to him, and starts to pray. He doesn't have to get up. So you're sitting, doing something, right? And he comes and stands next to you. You don't have to get up. Because he came into your place. And the Ramah says, we call Malcolm, we don't chasidut, afilu gavna. Even in such a case, person should get up. You should respect that he's davening, and you should get up. Mishnah Berurah says, this is medafka beveto. This is only talking about in your house. But if it's a regular minyan there, then you have to get up. Why? It's a malkim that's miyuchad l'chol adam. Afilu mekamot kavuim l'chol echad shikonim b'damim nami yesh lahachmer ach be'oisik b'torah lo yachmir b'zeh. V'chol sheken Rab sheyoshev im talmidim v'loimdim b'vo asara mitpalim ein tzarich la'amud afilu midat chesidot leika. Okay, so Mishnah Berurah says as follows: if it's a place that's a place of davening, and someone comes and davens, and you need to get up because that's a place to daven. But if you're sitting and learning Torah there, it's a place that's also for learning, and they're sitting and learning, and there's a Rav and Talmidim learning, then it's not even chasidut to get up, because there you're being mevatel Torah, and that is not chasidut to be mevatel Torah. Therefore, you shouldn't get up. So says the Yalkut Yosef in source 52. It's forbidden to sit within 4 cubits of praying Shema. Someone was praying Shema Esrei Dal Amud, but he was already seated, and a person came and began praying next to him. If he is sitting and engrossed in prayer or Torah, he should not stand up. And it's not chasidut to stand up because he's already doing something. On the contrary, one should be concerned in wasting time. But if he's not engrossed in Torah or prayer, if it was in the synagogue, it's appropriate to be stricken and stand from his place in front of that person. Midah Hasidut, already you're in the shul, right? And it's appropriate to stand up. But if it was in his home or space not designated for prayer, by the letter of the law, he does not need to stand up, though it's still Hasidut. So it comes out, Mishabru Yaakov is saying the same thing, that what? That if it's in the shul and someone comes and davens next to you, you should stand up unless you're davening or you're learning. But if you're home, you don't have to get up, but still you should. This a person should not sit down next to someone who is davening. Even to be osik b'Torah or davening. I mean, if someone is already davening, you should not go sit down next to them. You hear? You're not supposed to go sit down in front of someone when they're learning, when they're davening. If they're already davening, and you're coming to them, and you want to sit down there.
There's a guy who's davening Shmoneh Esrei. There's a chair in front of him. Some say there's a chair. What's it? No.
You want to say that it's
So now the seat, and he's sitting on the seat.
So for Iver, it's a problem. If it's past him, is seeing is a problem. But we're saying in the Chai Adam that if it's 10 tefachim and 4 tefachim wide, 10 tefachim wide, 4 tefachim wide, it has to be that.
Regular chair.
Yeah, I don't know what the dimensions of the chair.
No, it's not.
If you have 4 and 10, then technically that would be somewhat of mechitza. You're allowed to be sitting there on the other side of that. Right.
Chair is not.
But he writes there, okay, of shatat chak, yesh l'hakul b'zeh. Yishoisik b'Torah v'tefillah. Vein tzarech l'hachrik edatzma. U'levad sheyoytze et divrei haTorah b'piv. And if it's a pressing situation and you need to learn or you need to daven at that time, then as long as you're actually going to be verbalizing those words, then that would be okay. Okay, so let's take a look in here. I wrote down 2 pages here that I want to take a look. So, page of Memsiv. Made over here, Yesh Armish Kishem She'asur L'Shev L'fnei Mitpalel Kach Asur L'Asmich Al Hastender Kishu Omi L'fnei Mitpalel Smicha Kishiva Dami. So if you're next to the stender and you want to lean on it, and someone is davening there, you shouldn't be doing that. Yesh Chalkim. There is place to be lenient, and even if you're leaning it, like really leaning on it, that would still be okay. Hey, what did I write? So now you have a mechitza of glass, right? It's a partition. Again, during Corona, they put up a lot of glass or plastic and stuff like that, right? Omen and stadim. It's not going to help this plastic or glass partition. Okay, so it has to be someone that's blocking him, apparently.
Completely.
Yeah, someone blocking. So that's what you were saying. You're seeing him. That's what he's saying. Yeah, it would be a problem. Okay, fine. Okay, here he brings the Piskei Teshuvot. And the Piskei Teshuvah, what does he say here? If you're directly in front of him, there is no heter. All this heterim that we're saying is found at Tzadim, on Stadim. This is where the heterim are. But directly in front, there is no heter. Afilu chutz daled amot, even beyond 4 cubits. This is like the Zohar already, even beyond 4. Unless it's a place that's dedicated for learning and is not a prayer place. Okay, so far, this was the first case. This was a sitting in front. So what did we say? What did we say about sitting in front? Sitting in front of someone who is davening. You're not allowed to sit in front of someone who is davening. Definitely not directly in front of him. Anything that we're saying that if it's a mechitza or this or that, this is if it's to the stadim. And the Mishnah Berurah says one of the reasons the Mishnah Berurah brings down that the reason why you don't want to sit down in front of someone who's davening is ki'ilu, you're like saying you're davening to me. You know, like you sit down in front of him like he's like, you know, because especially there's also the Shekhinah is there and you're going in the place where the Shekhinah is. It's also problematic, but it also doesn't look right. Therefore, we don't want to do that. Okay, fine. And we said that if you were sitting there originally and he came, you should move away if it's in a shul. Right, and if you're home and someone did that and started davening next to you, you should also move away. If you want to sit down next to him when he's already davening, then you shouldn't. But shatatchak, if you need to learn a daven, you would be allowed to. That's what we came out at this point. Now, we really have a few more minutes. I think we could finish it up. Now we're going to be dealing with the second idea. This is to be avor, to pass someone who's davening. This is also another issue. Okay, so we have here a Gemara Masechta Berachot, source 54, page 168. Rav Ikkel Geniva v'Tzali shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. Right, so Rav happened by the house of Geniva, and he was praying Shabbat, praying on erev Shabbat. And Yerve Rabba was behind him. Besayim Rav, and he didn't back up. He stood where he was because Yirmiyah was davening. Shema mina tilat. Shema mina mitpal adam shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. You're learning how to pray the night of Shabbat already when it's the afternoon, the late evening. Shema mina mitpal talmid achrei rabo. The Talmud can pray behind his Rebbe. Shema mina asur le'avor keneged hamitpalelin. Now you're not allowed to pass before those who are praying. The reason why someone who's davening behind you, you're not allowed to back up into them because you're backing up into their prayer. You're passing them. And passing them is an issue. Asr le'avor keneged Tamid Ben Yonah. So you're allowed to daven there. You're not allowed to back up into them. Yeah, that's fine. Remember, the issue is sitting in front of them. Standing is not an issue. Passing by is an issue. The stamp to stand there, not an issue. So we said if there's a chatzitza and it's 10 tvachim high and 4 tvachim wide, then there is room to say you can sit on the other side of that chatzitza. But then we saw if it's a chatzitza of glass, then that's not considered. So you have to really look if it's somewhat that he doesn't see it. Somewhat that doesn't, because something's there, it's blocking his vision from it. It's a problem. He's going to hear the moving and hearing the stuff. That's another issue. Yeah, because he can hear the disturbance. Tamei Rabbeinu Yonah, Asul Avar Keneged Mitpalim, V'Davka Keneged Peneihem, Alo B'Tzadam Lo Chashidin Lahavra Ma'alma. So the Tamei Rabbeinu Yonah makes a difference here between sitting and between standing. When you're sitting, when the guy's sitting, the issue is in front and it's stadim. But when it's passing, according to Tamid Ben Yonah, the issue is just directly in front of him, passing him. It's not the stadim, not the sides. Here he brings in source 56 from the Bet Yosef.
They don't hold making noises an issue. If I'm passing on the side, most of them they don't hold like that.
To the sides, yeah. It seems to me the sides would not be much of an issue as is in front. Yeah. Right. So here he brings from the Rabbi Mahari Abu Hav, and he's writing the Orach Chaim. He writes over here, She'asur, to take 3 steps back until one behind him finishes his prayers. As if he does so, he'll be passing in front of one who is praying. Okay, now here he brings from the Shulchan Aruch on source 57, Asur la'avar keneged mitpalim mitach dal amot. The dafka lifneihem al b'tzadehem mutar la'avor b'la'amod. But in standing to the side would be mutar, to pass and to stand. Im hishlim tfilato v'haya adam acher mitpala acharav asur l'fsogim b'siyot ad shigmor misha acharav et tfilato. You're not going to go back until the person finishes davening behind you. Sh'im ya'aseh zeh arehu ko'over keneged hamitpalel avitzarech lidakdek bazeh afilu im ha'acharon hitchil hitpalel acharav. You have to be careful, even if you start after him, even after you started. So you start, so you're already 3 minutes in, then the guy pops in behind you. You still have to wait for him to finish. You can't back up. And here I'm going to bring, this is the Shulchan Aruch, and here he brings from the Zohar, but the Divrei HaZohar Kodesh, Yesh lahachmir shelo la'avor keneged hamitpalel kimela einav, v'gam shelo la'avor mitzadei hamitpalel b'toch daled amot. Here he brings down the Zohar held, walking by is a problem for as far as the eye can see in front and to the tzadim for daled amot. Even though Mikra Hadin ain't tzarech lachosh hazeh, v'amachmir k'divrei HaZohar tavo ala bracha, Yalkut Yosef says. So the halacha, Mikra Hadin, the Mikra Hadin, the halacha is, you're not allowed to walk in front of him directly where he is. That's 6.5 feet that's in front of him, in front of however wide he is. That's the issue. Walking to the sides, standing in the sides, la halacha is Mikra Hadin is not a problem. according to the Zohar, you shouldn't do that either. And it shouldn't do the 4 amot on the sides, and you shouldn't do for as far as he can see in front of him. So this is already a much more stricter take on this. Now, Asul Avar, Mishnah Berurah says, why is that? Because you mevatel his kavanah. Guy's walking by, and Rami says people stand, they congregate, they're talking, they're walking by. It's problematic. He doesn't have any kavanah. Also, I feel like so even if you're in the middle of Kriyat Shema, you're not allowed to bother someone else like that. You're making a what's it called? A hefsek between the person and the Shechina. Okay. Here he says the same would be the issue that if you had a mechitza of glass, you can't walk in front of him either because, again, he can see it and it's going to be problematic. That's footnote 26. That is Shulchan Aruch page 444. Halacha Daled there. Okay, Mishnah Berurah. V'tzdadeim shelifneim, and the sides that are in front of him, kilifneim dami. V'elirabba shari. So the Magen Avram and the Elirabba had this machloket for walking by that we were telling you. So in front, directly in front, which we say is the halacha, and the Magen Avraham held like this all the way around, or even the tzaddim for walking in front. Okay, Zohar would hold that in front it goes till no end, so long as he can see. Okay, so far so good. Someone asked Reb Chaim Kanevsky. This is source 61. I'm davening. The guy behind me is taking a long time. Can I go at an angle? This is a 10 minutes video. So can I go at an angle? Right? So he says over here, Tshuva yachal l'fsa b'al kason. You're allowed to go backward at an angle.
Even if within his.
So it's going to be out of it. When the fact that you go on an angle, because the whole issue is in front of him. The halacha l'maisa is lefanea. So if you go on its side, you're going to be in its side. The side is not an issue. The side is not an issue. Stadin is not an issue. The halacha mikra adin.
Even if it's within his.
Right. Right. No, we're not talking about it's in front of him directly. We're talking about it's on the side. It's over here. It's not in front of him directly. Okay. The Yalkut Yosef though doesn't take that same approach. He just says, "V'yesh makilim b'chai gamna imposel tzadin ubefrat b'zeken or choila or mishetesh kocho b'mei hatzamot." The Yalkut Yosef says you can't do this on a regular day to go on the angle. You're supposed to back up direct, not on an angle. Okay. Just to finish up, I know we're all running out. Just to finish up, the Yalkut Yosef writes that if a person is a kohen and he has to go wash his hands, but someone is behind him, he cannot go wash his hands. He'd rather not wash his hands, and if his hands he knows is clean and he doesn't have to wash it, he can go up and do from that way, but he shouldn't pass someone by. The Piskei Teshuvos argues on that and says that it's okay, but the Yalkut Yosef brings down that a person shouldn't do that, and he should be careful. What about the Piskei Teshuvos deals with other such issues? The Yalkut Yosef also deals with this. Someone has to go use the bathroom, right? Cover the briot. He has to use the bathroom all of a sudden, and the guy's diving there. Should he pass in front of him or not? Cover the briot. You want the guy to go to the bathroom. You don't want him to make him in the middle of the shul. So obviously, you would allowed to go over it. There is room to be more mekel. Piskei Teshuvos deals with this, and the Yalkut Yosef deals with also. The person is closing his eyes, or the person is covering his eyes with a talit. So now he's not going to see you passing by. So that issue of
hear you.
Right, you have the issue of hearing, but you have a less of an issue because he's not seeing you. So the Yalkut Yosef Piskei Teshuvos says that if it's in such a case that you need to do it, somewhat of a shasat chak, some reason, some tarich, you're allowed to be doing it. Also, they bring the case of some chacham decided to daven in front of the door, right? And the door has to come in and out. People have to come in and out. So such a case also, there's room to be mekel because he shouldn't have been davening there, and people need to come in and out. It's tzarech, they need to come in and out. And also at that point, there's room to be mekel. However, we should be as strict as we can not to pass by somebody who's davening. People are having kavanah, and we shouldn't share their kavanah. In fact, to say even today, when we know people are not really having kavanah, we should still not walk in front of them. Shouldn't, because maybe they do, or somewhat of kavanah. You don't want to ruin it more and give them something else to think about. You could take a.
We can do like young people, 2 people is gonna take him and move him.
You can do that, right? You can move him. Right.
We said he can walk.
Yeah, technically you can walk.
Not talk.
Yeah, if you walk on him, if you have a problem, that's the
Problem.
Right.
It's not his
It's
problem.
other people's problem. Right. Okay. People should daven b'chachma. You should find a place that is a smart place. And okay, this is where we'll finish up to. So Baruch Hashem, we finished the shir. Shkoyach. All right. Finish on time, right?
Have this in the Lashon Kodesh.